The sky above the Red Valley was quiet, but the silence felt heavy. Broken stone and scorched earth spread across the ground, signs of a battle that had ended only hours ago. At the center of the valley lay a massive dragon. Its dark scales rose and fell slowly as it breathed. One wing was torn, resting awkwardly against the ground. Smoke drifted from its nostrils with every breath. Humans stood at a distance, forming a wide circle around the fallen creature. Soldiers held energy rifles, their hands tight and ready. Engineers and scientists whispered behind them, eyes filled with fear and wonder. No one dared to move closer. Everyone knew the stories. Dragons woke with fire. Dragons woke with rage. Everyone expected destruction. The dragon was called Aurelian by its own kind, though no human there knew its name. To them it was only a weapon of legend. A creature that had burned cities in the past and shattered fleets in the sky. Its size alone made the ground feel weak beneath it. A warning light blinked on a human scanner. One of the soldiers spoke in a tense voice. Its heart rate is rising. It's waking up. Several weapons lifted at once. Fingers hovered over triggers. The air felt sharp like it could break. "Hold your position," said Commander Reth. His voice was steady but his jaw was tight. "No one fires unless I give the order." Near the back of the group stood a man who carried no weapon. His name was Elier Vance. He wore a simple field coat marked with the symbol of the Human Care Division. His hands were empty. His face was pale but his eyes were calm. Elier had seen dragons before but never this close. Never like this. He took a slow breath and stepped forward. "Vance, stop," Commander Reth snapped. "Get back behind the line." Elier did not turn around. "If it wakes and sees weapons," he said quietly, "it will react as it always has. With fear. With fire." "And you think stepping closer helps?" the commander asked. "I think someone needs to be seen without fear," Elier replied. A murmur passed through the crowd. Some shook their heads. Others stared in disbelief. A few scientists whispered that this was madness. The dragon's eye twitched. Dust slid from its scales as the massive eyelid slowly lifted. A single golden eye opened, glowing like molten light. The temperature in the valley rose slightly. Soldiers tensed. Energy weapons hummed as they charged. The dragon saw them. Rows of armed humans. Machines aimed at its heart. Fear and readiness filled the air. Its chest expanded. Everyone braced for fire. But the dragon did not breathe flames. Instead its eye shifted. It noticed the one figure standing alone ahead of the others. No weapon. No armor. Just a human standing still, hands open at his sides. The dragon's eye narrowed, not in anger but in confusion. Elier took another step forward. The sound of his boots on stone echoed too loudly in the silence. He stopped several meters away from the dragon's head. The heat was stronger here. Sweat formed on his forehead. "It's all right," he said softly, even though he knew the dragon might not understand his words. "You're not alone." Commander Reth raised his hand, ready to give the firing order at the first sign of flame. The dragon shifted its head slightly. The movement caused the ground to tremble. Some humans stumbled back. One soldier gasped. Elier stayed where he was. The dragon's breath washed over him, hot but steady. Its eye studied him closely. Not as prey. Not as an enemy. As something unfamiliar. The dragon had expected pain when it woke. Fear. More battle. Instead it sensed something strange. Stillness. Calm. A presence that did not demand or threaten. Elier slowly knelt. He lowered himself until one knee touched the stone. It was a gesture of respect, old and simple. A sharp intake of breath spread through the human line. "What is he doing?" someone whispered. "He's going to get us all killed," another said. The dragon's eye widened slightly. No human had ever lowered themselves before it. Humans usually shouted. Attack. Ran. This one did none of those things. The dragon released a low sound. Not a roar. Not a growl. It was deep and rough, filled with pain and exhaustion. Elier looked at the torn wing, the cracked scales. He felt a tight ache in his chest. Slowly, carefully, he raised one hand, palm open, and held it near the dragon's face without touching. "I won't hurt you," he said quietly. The dragon did not move away. Time seemed to stretch. Every second felt dangerous. Soldiers waited for the command that did not come. Commander Reth watched, torn between fear and disbelief. The dragon's eye slowly closed halfway, then opened again. Its breathing eased slightly. The heat in the air softened. No fire came. Elier leaned forward just a little more. Close enough now to feel the dragon's breath on his skin. Close enough that one wrong move could end everything. But he felt something else too. Not anger. Not hunger. But confusion. And a deep, old loneliness. The dragon's head lowered by a small amount, resting more fully against the stone. Dust lifted around it. The golden eye remained fixed on Elior. For the first time since anyone could remember, a dragon had woken among humans and chosen not to burn. The soldiers slowly lowered their weapons, unsure why they were doing it, only knowing that firing now felt wrong. Commander Reth did not give the order. Silence returned to the valley, but it was different now. Not fear-filled. Not sharp. It was watching. Waiting. And everyone there understood something important, even if they could not yet explain it. This moment was not ending in fire. This moment was becoming something else. The valley remained quiet long after the dragon opened its eye. No flames rose. No roar shook the air. The only sound was the slow breathing of the massive creature and the soft wind moving across broken stone. Humans stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. What they had expected had not happened. Elior stayed kneeling in front of the dragon. His heart was racing, but he kept his breathing slow. He knew that any sudden move could change everything. The dragon's golden eye watched him closely, unblinking. It was not the look of a hunter. It was the look of something thinking. Commander Reth lowered his raised hand, though he did not fully relax. "No one move," he said quietly. "Not yet." The dragon shifted its head again, carefully this time. Its injured wing scraped against the ground, and a deep sound escaped its throat. It was not anger. It was pain. Several scientists noticed it and exchanged uneasy glances. Elior looked at the torn wing. The damage was serious. "You're hurt," he said softly, even though he knew the dragon might not understand his words. "You fought. And now you're tired." The dragon's eye narrowed slightly. Its breathing slowed, then steadied. It seemed to listen not to the words but to the tone. Behind Elior, a young medic whispered, "He's talking to it like it's a person." "Dragons think," another scientist replied. "We just never treated them like they do." Elior slowly reached into his coat. Several soldiers stiffened, weapons lifting again. Commander Reth raised his hand halfway, ready to stop them. Elior's hand came out holding a small medical scanner. He held it up clearly so everyone could see it. Then he placed it gently on the ground and slid it forward with his fingertips. "I'm not a threat," he said quietly. "I want to help." The dragon's eye followed the small device as it moved across the stone. It did not react with fire or movement. It simply watched. Minutes passed. The scanner beeped softly, showing rising energy levels and signs of stress in the dragon's body. Elior glanced at it but did not pick it up again. He stayed still. The dragon's head lowered a little more, resting fully on the ground now. The movement was slow and careful, as if it was choosing not to frighten the small human in front of it. This choice confused everyone watching. Commander Reth stepped closer, keeping his distance. "Elior," he said in a low voice, "we can't assume it's safe. Dragons don't surrender." Elior did not look away from the dragon. "Maybe it's not surrender," he said. "Maybe it's something else." The dragon released another deep sound. This one was softer. Almost like a tired sigh. Its golden eye closed for a brief moment, then opened again. Elior felt a strange pull in his chest. The fear he had expected was still there, but something stronger was growing around it. Understanding. He slowly stood, moving with care. The dragon's eye followed him, but it did not tense. Elior took one small step closer, then stopped. "I'm going to touch your wing," he said softly. "Just for a moment." A sharp breath moved through the human line. "Don't," someone whispered. Elior reached out and gently placed his hand near the edge of the dragon's torn wing. He did not touch the wound. He only rested his fingers against an unbroken scale. The scale was warm, smooth, alive. The dragon did not react with violence. Instead, its breathing slowed even more. A quiet shock passed through the humans. No alarms sounded. No weapons fired. The dragon had allowed contact. "This isn't possible," one scientist whispered. "It is," another replied. "We're seeing it." Elior closed his eyes for a brief moment, steadying himself. Then he pulled his hand back slowly. "Thank you," he said, though he was not sure why. The dragon's eye studied him again. Something ancient and thoughtful moved behind the glow. Dragons had known war, fear, and loss for centuries. Humans had always come with force or fear. This one had come with neither. The dragon made a choice. It shifted its massive body slightly, turning its head so that its injured side faced away from the armed humans. The movement exposed the wound more clearly, but also placed Elior in the safest position. It was not an attack. It was trust. Commander Reth felt his throat tighten. It's allowing this, he said quietly. Elier nodded slowly. It understands, he said. Maybe not our words, but our intent. Medical teams began to move forward carefully, carrying equipment but no weapons. They kept their distance, watching the dragon closely. The dragon did not react. It remained still, eye half closed, breathing deep and slow. The valley felt different now. The fear that had filled the air was slowly being replaced by something uncertain, fragile, and powerful. Oh. Elier stepped back slightly to give the dragon space. He placed one hand over his chest, a simple human gesture of respect. The dragon's eye followed the movement. Then, slowly, it lowered its head once more, resting it fully on the stone. It had chosen stillness. It had chosen not to burn. Among the humans watching, confusion spread. This choice did not fit any record, any story, any past battle. A dragon had been expected to answer fear with fire. Instead, it had answered calm with calm. And in that quiet valley, everyone understood that something had changed. They did not yet know what it meant or where it would lead. They only knew that the dragon had made a choice no one understood. And that choice was rewriting everything. The valley remained still as the sun climbed higher. Light reflected off the dragon's dark scales, making soft patterns across its massive body. Humans moved slowly now, careful with every step. No one spoke loudly. No one ran. The moment felt fragile, like a thin glass bridge that could break with one wrong sound. Elier stood near the dragon's head again. The medical teams had stopped a short distance away, waiting. The dragon's golden eye watched everything, calm but alert. It had not moved since it lowered its head. Its breathing was deep and slow, carrying warmth into the cool air. Elier felt the weight of many eyes on his back. Soldiers, scientists, commanders, all of them watching him, waiting to see what he would do next. He knew they did not understand him. He barely understood himself. He only knew one thing. Fear had not worked. Weapons had not worked. Silence and calm had. The dragon shifted slightly. Its eye focused fully on Elier again. There was no anger in it, only awareness. Elier took a slow step forward. Commander Reth inhaled sharply but did not stop him. Elier stopped close enough to feel the heat from the dragon's scales. He could see small cracks and scars, signs of many old battles. This was not a simple creature. This was a being that had lived a long time and seen much loss. "You're watching me," Elier said softly. "That means you're listening. In your own way." The dragon did not pull back. Elier raised his hand slowly, not toward the wound this time but toward the dragon's face. His fingers trembled slightly but he did not stop. He placed his palm gently against the smooth scales near the dragon's eye. The contact was brief, light, respectful. The dragon did not move away. A soft sound passed through the human group. No one had expected this. Touch had always led to fire in the past. Always to death. Elier leaned in just a little closer. His heart beat loudly in his chest, but his movements stayed slow and steady. He studied the dragon's eye. It was ancient, thoughtful, tired. In that moment, Elier made a choice. It was not planned. It was not ordered. It came from instinct, not logic. He leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss against the smooth scales on the dragon's forehead. It was a simple human gesture. Small, soft. No force. No demand. The valley seemed to stop breathing. Some soldiers froze completely. A scientist covered her mouth in shock. Commander Reth felt his pulse pound in his ears. Everyone expected fire. Everyone expected the end. The dragon did not react. It did not roar. It did not pull back. It did not breathe flames. Instead, the dragon closed its eye. Slowly, fully. Its breathing deepened, steady and calm. The heat around it softened. The tension in the air melted away, replaced by something quiet and unreal. The dragon accepted the gesture. Elier pulled back carefully, his breath shaking slightly now that the moment had passed. He stepped away, giving the dragon space, his hands open and visible. No alarms sounded. No weapons fired. The dragon lowered its head just a little more, resting it fully against the stone. Its massive body relaxed in a way no one had ever seen before. It trusted him, a scientist whispered. It trusted him enough to close its eyes. Commander Reth slowly lowered his weapon. "That wasn't weakness," he said quietly. "That was a choice." The dragon's eye opened again after a few moments. It looked at Elier, then at the humans behind him. There was no fear in its gaze. No anger. Only something deep and unreadable. The medical teams moved closer now, guided by Elier's calm gestures. They worked carefully, treating the injured wing without touching sensitive areas. The dragon allowed it. It did not move, did not threaten, did not resist. The kiss had changed something. Eliur stayed nearby, silent now. He did not need to speak. The smallest gesture had already said more than words ever could. The dragon released a low, gentle sound. Not pain. Not warning. Something closer to relief. The humans worked for hours. As the sun began to lower, the dragon remained still, patient, aware. The valley that had once expected destruction now held cooperation. Fear had ruled the past. Trust ruled this moment. As the medical team stepped back, the dragon lifted its head slightly and looked at Eliur one last time. The golden eye met his, and in that look was something clear. Understanding. Not complete. Not perfect. But real. Eliur placed his hand over his heart again and bowed his head slightly. The dragon did not burn the world. It had accepted a kiss. And with that simple, quiet act, the line between human and dragon had begun to fade. The days after the kiss did not bring fire or chaos. Instead, they brought silence, questions, and change. The valley that had once been filled with fear became a place of careful movement and quiet voices. The dragon remained where it was, resting as its injured wing healed under gentle human care. No chains held it. No weapons were pointed at it anymore. Eliur stayed close, not as a guard, but as a presence the dragon recognized. Whenever he approached, the dragon's golden eye would open and follow him, calm and steady. It did not see him as prey or threat. It saw him as something new. News of what happened spread quickly. Across human settlements, across distant stations, and across worlds where dragons still ruled the skies, the story moved like a slow wave. Not as a battle report. Not as a warning. But as something unbelievable. A human had kissed a dragon. And the dragon had not burned him. Many did not believe it at first. Old commanders laughed. Some dragon elders dismissed it as weakness or trickery. But recordings existed. Clear and undeniable. The moment replayed again and again on screens across space. Fear began to crack. On Valira, humans and dragons watched each other from a distance. No attacks came. No threats followed. Dragons flying high above the planet did not descend in anger. They circled instead, watching the valley where one of their own rested among humans. The injured dragon lifted its head one morning and looked to the sky. It released a deep, steady call that echoed across the plains. It was not a cry of pain or warning. It was a message. Other dragons answered. High above, shadows moved through the clouds. Not diving. Not attacking. Observing. Eliur stood beside the resting dragon as it watched the sky. They hear you, he said quietly. The dragon shifted slightly, its tail brushing the ground. It was stronger now. The wings still needed time, but the pain had faded. It had been treated without fear, without force. That mattered. Human leaders arrived days later. Not with fleets, but with observers. They kept their distance, watching the interaction between Eliur and the dragon. No orders were given. No weapons raised. Commander Reth spoke to them in low tones. If we had fired that day, he said, none of this would exist. The leaders watched as Eliur approached the dragon, touching its scales calmly. The dragon leaned slightly toward him, not in submission but in trust. This changes everything, one leader whispered. Across dragon territories, elders gathered. They watched the recordings in silence. Dragons had always believed humans only understood force. This moment challenged that belief. One elder spoke at last. The human did not command. He did not beg. He did not fear. Another replied, and the dragon did not burn. It chose restraint. For the first time in centuries, dragons questioned their own stories. Back in the valley, something small but powerful happened. A young dragon descended from the sky and landed at the edge of the plain. It stayed far from the humans, but it did not flee either. Then another came. And another. They watched the injured dragon resting among humans. They watched the human who stood beside it without fear. No fire fell. No sky darkened with war. Humans noticed too. Fear did not vanish overnight, but it softened. Scientists approached with open hands. Medics treated injuries without shields. Even soldiers stood with their weapons lowered. Eliur felt the weight of the moment. He had not planned this. He had not meant to become a symbol. But he understood now that the kiss had not been about him. It had been about choice. One evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon, the injured dragon slowly rose to its feet. Humans stepped back, hearts racing, but no one panicked. The dragon spread its wings slightly. The injured one still stiff but healing. It turned its head toward the gathered humans and released a deep, calm sound. Not a threat. A statement. Then it looked to the sky. Other dragons answered. The sound carried across worlds. Human communication systems picked it up. Dragon listening posts did too. It was not language as either side knew it, but both understood the meaning. This is different. That night human ships did not retreat. Dragon patrols did not advance. Borders that had once burned with conflict stayed quiet. The shift had begun. Not with treaties. Not with weapons. Not with victory. But with trust shown in the smallest gesture. Elior stood alone for a moment, watching the stars appear. The dragon rested nearby, calm and strong. Two worlds, once divided by fear, now watched each other with new eyes. No one knew what the future would bring. But everyone knew this. The old rules no longer applied. The valley no longer felt like a place of waiting. It felt like a beginning. Days passed, then weeks, and still no fire fell from the sky. Dragons came and went above the plains, circling slowly, watching the humans below. Human ships remained grounded, their weapons powered down. Fear had not vanished, but it no longer ruled every decision. The injured dragon stood fully now. Its wing was still marked by scars, but it could move without pain. When it walked, the ground trembled softly, yet no one stepped back in panic anymore. Humans had learned its movements. The dragon had learned theirs. Elior walked beside it often. Not ahead. Not behind. Just beside. He spoke sometimes, though words were no longer needed. The dragon listened in its own way. When Elior stopped, it stopped. When he moved away, it did not follow, but it watched, calm and aware. Commander Reth observed from a distance, arms crossed. I spent my life thinking strength meant readiness, he said quietly to another officer. Weapons. Orders. Control. And now? The officer asked. Reth watched the dragon lower its massive head so Elior could touch its scales. Now I think strength might be knowing when not to raise your hand. Across human space, training programs changed. New divisions formed, not built for battle but for contact. Care teams. Listener units. People chosen not for aggression but for patience and calm. Elior did not lead them, but his actions guided them. Across dragon worlds, elders gathered again. The old stories were retold, but now they ended differently. Not with flames. Not with victory. With restraint. One elder spoke slowly. Fire is easy, she said. It comes from instinct. Control is harder. Choice is harder. Another replied, then perhaps choice is the greater strength. The message spread without orders. Dragons approached human borders and stopped. Humans saw them and did not attack. The silence between worlds became shared, not empty. One morning, a group of young dragons landed near the valley. Smaller than the injured one. Curious. Careful. Humans froze at first, then relaxed when Elior stepped forward and stood calmly, hands open. The young dragons watched him. One stepped closer. Not close enough to touch. Close enough to see. Elior did not move. The young dragon lowered its head slightly. A breath passed through the watching humans. Not relief. Respect. The injured dragon watched this exchange and released a deep, steady sound. Approval. Pride. Strength was changing shape. Human leaders arrived again, not to command but to observe. One asked Elior quietly, why did you do it? The kiss. That moment. Elior thought for a long time before answering. Because everyone expected fire, he said. And someone had to show there was another option. The leader nodded slowly. History won't know what to do with that. History will learn, Elior replied. The dragon lifted its head and looked toward the sky. It spread its wings fully now, strong and wide. Humans watched, heart steady. It did not take flight immediately. It waited. Elior stepped back, giving space. The dragon looked at him one last time. Golden eyes calm. Clear. It did not bow. It did not submit. It acknowledged. Then it rose into the sky, wings cutting through the air with power and grace. Wind swept across the valley, but no heat followed. No flame. Just movement. Other dragons joined it above, flying not in formation but together. Humans watched until the shapes became distant. The valley remained unchanged, yet everything was different. Weeks later, the first shared station was built on the edge of dragon territory. No walls. No guns. Only open space and shared air. Dragons landed there. Humans stood there. Sometimes they spoke. Sometimes they did not. Both were learning. Elior visited the station often. Sometimes he felt small beneath the vast wings overhead. But he no longer felt weak. Strength, he realized, was not about size or fire or fear. It was about restraint when power was available. It was about kindness when destruction was expected. It was about choosing not to burn the world when you easily could. The story of the kiss spread far and wide. Not as a legend of bravery but as a lesson. Children heard it. Soldiers studied it. Dragons remembered it. Everyone expected fire. What changed the universe was a gentle choice. And from that moment on, strength meant something new.